wait, you're already doing like almost $150,000 a month, only like 3 months in. Like, this is incredible. Where the hell did you guys come from?
After me and you chatted, you're like, well, just try Cartel for like a couple weeks and see what you think if you want to buy it. I think the next month we were at like 220, and then the month after that we were at like 380. Like, it just kept going and going. By December, we were doing like $500,000 of closed and funded deals, and we had started in May.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another 11 out of 10 podcast. We're bringing it bigger and better than ever before. I'm back, baby. I'm back. And we have to kick things off in style by bringing another legend in the game, none other than Tony Montalbano. Welcome, brother.
What's up, brother?
It's good to finally have
Tony.
you.
Yeah.
Hey,
On the Best of
buddy.
Couch, we got Zach Keeps co-hosting. He's got something incredible coming in next month. I don't know if we can talk about it.
We can talk about it.
We can talk about
No,
it.
let's talk about that first.
First of all, welcome back and a new
Yes.
dad. That's
Yeah.
more
Yes.
exciting than any of it.
Congratulations.
That's the most
Thank
exciting.
you. It's been great. It's been absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. If you don't have kids, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
You got kids,
highest
Tony?
return on investment that you can do.
But you're
Doing your
glowing,
thing.
dude. You look like a new dad.
Thank you. Tell us, who is Tony?
I'm known in the wholesale industry as the dispo guy. Got into the industry in 2021 with literally no knowledge of real estate, wholesaling, anything. I started making calls on acquisitions first. Like, I was like, let me just wrap my head around this. And the first call I ever made, it was like 2 days of listening, 2 days of listening to Eric pitch. And then I just grabbed the script, hit the CRM, first dial I ever made, I got under contract. And we ended up dispoing that deal for like 8 or 9 grand.
Were you hooked? Like,
Yeah, so I was like, man, this is super easy, right?
Yeah.
It was like a curse. Like, the first call I ever made ended up being a contract.
and then you have to do 200 more for the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
At least.
But I get that under contract, and then I'm like, well, there's 2 of us in the office. We're sending all our deals out to get dispoed. I'm like, let me try and figure out this dispo thing.
Yeah, you
know?
guys called me like that first or second month. I remember that.
Yeah,
call.
it was like we started in May, and then we signed up for Investorlift, I think in like August or something.
Yeah.
And-
just getting rolling.
Yeah, we were just getting rolling, but we got the base version of Investorlift, and then me and you got on a call, and you're like, "Where did you guys come from?" You know, he's like, "You guys are already doing $100 grand a month, and you've only done this since May."
Yeah, because I remember at that time we had a hard cutoff of you got to be doing $250,000 a month to buy Cartel.
Right.
Eric gets on the phone with you and me. He's like, "I want Cartel," and I'm like, "Sorry, man, you got to have HUDs showing you're doing
Yeah.
250." He's like, "Bro, I've been doing this for like 3 months."
Yeah,
Like, and I'm already at. I think you're at like I think it was 149.
yeah,
or
something
something
like
like
that.
140 something. I was like, wait. You're already doing like almost $150,000 a month, only like 3 months in. Like, this is incredible. Where the hell did you guys come from?
It was insane. So ended up, after me and you chatted, you're like, well, just try Cartel for like a couple weeks and see what you think if you want to buy it. And you gave it to us to try out. And then like, I think the next month we were at like 220. And then the month after that, we were at like 380 or something.
Yeah.
Like, it just kept going and going. By December, we were doing like $500,000 in December of closed and funded deals. And we had started in May. So it went really fast. Really fun ride. You know, built that business for 3 years, ended up selling it earlier this year,
Congratulations.
which was great.
When they say you can't sell a wholesaling business, you can, and Eric
You
can
absolutely
totally
can.
prove that.
Yeah, 100%. So that was kind of the goal when we got into it, was to build a business and sell it. We didn't know we would like do coaching and mentorships or anything like that. It just kind of happened organically. Just at like masterminds and stuff, people were coming up to both of us asking us like questions about the process, the sales process, the dispo process. And this was probably early 2022 in San Diego. I was at a small mastermind of 50 people, and I spoke for like 10 minutes about my dispo process. And then after that, like every single person was coming up to me like, how do we learn from you? And I was like, well, why don't we all just instead of
Hop on a Zoom.
Yeah, so I was like, let's hop on a Zoom. And then I got back to the office in Raleigh, and I was like, you know what? Let me do a Zoom for $299 and see how many people I can get on the Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And I sent it to everybody at the mastermind. I started posting on Instagram. I only had like 1,000 followers back then, but 98 people paid and showed up for this $299 Zoom call.
That's better than a disposition.
Yeah. And I was like, damn, like this is very much needed in the industry because not a lot of people were talking dispo. I think like David Olds was the only one that ever even talked about it or trained on it or had a course. So I just deep dove into it, and that's like primarily what I'm doing now is teaching dispo. I have a JV company where I get rid of deals for people. So yeah, it's been great.
But that call must have been on, what, 2 minutes? You're like, okay, here's my strategy. You take the deal, you put it on Investorlift, and then you wait for the contract. All right, have a good day.
Yeah, it's definitely some of that.
I'm kidding.
It's, like I get to talking on these coaching calls too. And, I said, I'll do an hour, and then like back then I hadn't really spoken on any stages. I didn't really coach yet. And I was like, damn, how am I going to fill an hour of like talking dispo? It ended up going like 3 hours.
Yeah, there's like the conversation, like there's the games that buyers try to play. There's, like how do you make sure that the buyer's legit? Buyer vetting, like there's so much strategy that goes into it. You can post a deal on Investorlift, get a bunch of leads, but if you don't follow up the leads and know how to qualify them and know the difference between a daisy chain and a legit buyer, like guys like you and me that have done thousands of deals, I can tell in the first 15 seconds just based on the tonality, whether I'm talking to a real buyer or another wholesaler that's trying a daisy chain, because you just pick it up after thousands of calls. But for someone that's brand new, like they don't have that ear, right? So just getting a little bit of training can really elevate.
Yeah, and you said something important there of like the follow-ups. Because like in 2021, when we got into this business, like everything was selling so fast. Yeah. Like especially in the markets.
Interest rates.
Yeah, we were in Raleigh. I mean, North Carolina was booming, Raleigh and Durham and Fayetteville and all that. Charlotte. Like we would get a deal and I mean it would sell for over asking like the next day. Yeah. And all the hedge funds were buying. Oh, yeah. I mean you could roll out any person could roll out of bed and make 20 grand on a wholesale deal. Like if you got anything under contract.
You have a heartbeat.
Even if it was like discounted just like 10%, you could make money off of it. Because people that were buying were like, well, by the time I rehab this and put it on the market, it's going to go up even more. And it was like, it was insane. So like, I think I got spoiled during that time because it's like, I had just gotten started and it just seemed like way too easy, within, we having Eric as a partner and Shyla as a partner. I mean, we had this thing dialed in and we had capital and all that, but a lot of it too was the market was cranking at that time. So like every deal we were getting, even if it was like, as we learned wholesaling, we were just locking up so many deals and it was at a time where everybody was buying them. But my dispo process did get sloppy because it's like, how can you really have a process when every deal you get, you literally just put it out there and it sells, So you got kind of stagnant, a lot of people did. And that's why a lot of people fell off in 22 when the interest rates went up and all their 3 people that were buying all their deals were like, I'm going to wait and see what happens with all the properties I have listed right now, Yeah. So like that was really a blessing in disguise for me because then I just like deep dove into like refining the process now that the interest rates were up and all the hedge funds were not buying, all the big buyers weren't buying. And that's my process to today is how it changed in 22.
This is 100%. This is, I mean, we're all about adding value to these, to our listeners and to the groups and giving them education and talk about experience from positive and negative to learn from that. Let's talk about the transition. You came at a time where you could throw a dart and you're going to hit, right? 100%. The wall, boom, it's 100%. Now today, market's a little more stagnant, rates are up. Talk about the process today. What are you utilizing for your dispo channels? What are the conversations you're having? What is the Tony Mont secret sauce for these viewers?
Yeah, so that's what triggered, my thought on it was when Robert said the follow-up, right? We got lazy and like we didn't have to follow up with buyers. Like they were calling us constantly of like, give me more deals, So it comes down, it's every little thing. And we always talk about how do we, like people talk about certain areas where it's like, oh, it's so competitive. Like there's so many wholesalers, there's so many people doing marketing. These buyers are getting 50 deals sent to them a day. It's like, well, how do we stand out from everybody else? Like that's all you got to think about. And it's like, it comes down to a lot, but like structuring a deal properly where you're like sending a package to a buyer where they don't have to think and they don't have to go way off into different software and figure out what the comps are, what the return's going to be. Yeah. Like we structure all of that in the deal, like with really detailed photos.
Hello, you just closed a deal on Investorlift for $100,000? Well, that happens all the time. I talk to wholesalers all day, every single day. And the number one problem they have, buyers. If you're struggling with low assignment fees, deals not moving, contract fallouts, or having to consistently JV with other people, don't waste time, don't waste money. Come to Investorlift today and see how we can help you. Just click on the link right below.
With a really detailed, I call it a listing, but it's really just your email marketing of like, hey, you buy it at this price, you put this amount of money into it, and you sell it for this on the market. After your soft costs, hard costs are out of it, you're gonna make 40 grand on this deal. And I'm gonna prove it with the comps right here below it. Like you have to stand out and show, like I'm giving you as much information as as a buyer. It's like if somebody sends you a deal and there's any question mark in it, it's like you're just gonna go on to the next one. Yeah. You don't want to have to. I'm always leery,
devil's advocate. I'm always leery when someone sends me the comps. I said, don't fucking waste my time and send me the comps. A good buyer knows the comps. We're setting the comps.
Right.
So a lot of times there's like, they'll send you a comp. The original home was 1,000 square feet. But then you have to delve deeper to show that all of a sudden, there's an addition on there. When you go, you're looking at the tax records. I'm spending the time looking at the comps you spent me, and all of a sudden it's like, that home's really 1,400 square feet, and you're valuing it at 300 a foot.
But if you do it properly, though, it saves a lot of time, right? Because when you're getting 50 deals a day, so interesting. No, we had our data analyst look at what are the top 10 things that drive offers on Investorlift that determine whether or not you actually sell your deal or not. And you know what the number one is? Just listing an ARV. That is the number one.
What?
Listing an ARV.
An ARV.
Oh, okay.
Listing an ARV. There's so many. Now we made it mandatory. You have to list an ARV. Mm-hmm. After we saw the data, we're like, shit, that's the number one thing. Just putting an ARV is the number one thing. Of the top 10, one of the other ones that came up was listing comps. If you go to the comps tab and you put comps in, that is one of the number one predictors that your deal will sell.
Well, and it's like the buyers are still probably going to do their own research.
Yes,
like I understand that.
But at a certain point, you're reputable.
You're trying to prove your point on the deal. It's like, hey, you can make this amount, because we know there's wholesalers out there that just say, hey, this is a good deal in a good neighborhood, make some money on it, as opposed to like, hey, this is the structure. This is a better fix and flip than a buy and hold because of this. Or this is a better buy and hold because here's a breakdown on a BRRRR method, and this is what your return's going to be. And then the comps just prove it. But to what you said, like, I think Dispo has to run no comps and underwriting better than anybody in the office. Like that was one thing with my Dispo team. Like I was really strict about like, hey, we have to come up with really good comps, and you got to know how to underwrite a deal, and you have to know the structure of a deal. Like you're the buyer. If I'm going to flip this thing, am I really going to, would I buy this deal?
Correct.
And like even coming up with like, if you're using hard money, and what is your down payment going to be on that hard money? What's your interest going to be that you pay over 90 days plus like a point or a point and a half on an origination fee? Like break all that down. Yeah. So it's so detailed, the buyer can't, it helps so much with objections too.
It's foolproof.
You're
essentially an attorney proving a case.
Yeah.
Here's the data, here's the facts, summary judgment. Yes, do you want it, or you don't, because I have 100 other buyers.
Yeah, and when Dispo's on the phone, like you could put a new person on the phone with a structure like that of sending a deal out, and anything a buyer tells that Dispo agent, like they can just be like, no, like I've proved the point here in this one page on Investorlift. Right?
But a good buyer's not going to go back and forth. They're going to see it, and they're going to just say yes or no immediately. And most of them, they're going to say yes.
Yeah, and it cuts out a lot of that fat then too.
So how did you determine to be so certain on the transparency and the data? Like, have you done a lot of remodels to understand how much the construction costs on these deals?
Yeah.
Where do you get that data from?
Yeah, so I worked construction for a long time before I got into wholesaling.
See, now that's brilliant.
I've flipped a lot of houses virtually. I've flipped 10 or 12 houses virtually, with only walking in 2 of them, and have made we made $1 million profit on those virtual flips.
Yeah.
And so I know that process. I know the construction well, and when I come up with like a rehab sheet and it's like cost per square foot for certain items, like I'd say on average, like every 9 months, I'm calling all my best buyers and getting their numbers. Like, hey, what is your,
smart.
It's like, what is like, if you're going to put LVP down on a 1,500 square foot house, like what's the cost?
$6,000.
And they would like know, just like you did, right? So like they would know all the numbers and it's like, all right, are we still good with our sheet? Do we have to adjust it? And we adjusted it a couple of times because of, after COVID and all that stuff. Like,
do you do it by market or do you just have
never did it by market?
Yeah.
I think that got a little too into the weeds.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so many variables with wholesaling. Like you just got to get as close as you possibly can. If you start getting too far into the weeds, like there's still other variables, It's like you're not really walking the property, you're not getting a proper, so you're kind of going off
depending on
that.
like the exit strategy, someone's scope of work could be completely different. One guy might want to rehab it and go for a really high ARV, whereas another guy might want to just like carpet, paint, lipstick, let's throw a rental tenant in it, and let's rinse and repeat.
Well, you got to see like your comps are your buyers, right? I say that all the time, and it's so important.
That's a key thing. Your comps are your buyers. I get what you're saying there. Can you explain that for people that maybe didn't catch what you're saying by that?
Yeah, your comps are your buyers. So we're constantly trying to figure out like what's the ARV so I can do the formula, right? Or what's the 1%? Is it a 1% rule? Like you're looking at all your comps in your area, all your rehabs, and all your cash comps. Like those are going to be your buyers when you end up locking up this deal. So we get so into the weeds, and everybody teaches like formulas and stuff, and I teach them too. They're important on the dispo side, so you know what your buyer's return is going to be. Like I think that's very important. But when you're locking up a deal, like ARV is a variable. Like like it's hard to figure out what your ARV is going to be usually. Usually you don't have the exact same house in the exact same neighborhood where somebody's going to do the exact same rehab. Like that's rare.
Yeah.
Right? So the ARV is a variable, the rehab's a variable. So just doing a formula, you're going to miss out on a lot of deals, I think, or you're going to overprice your deal. So what I teach with underwriting is your comps to your buyers, like who's buying in this area, don't even worry about the ARV. Like when you're trying to lock up a deal or you're trying to dispo a deal, it's like, what are your buyers paying for these deals cash? Yeah. Look at your list. Look at the active listings of flips. Look at anything that sold in the last 6 months that was a flip. And I guarantee you, if you grab 5 of those data points, and if the properties are in similar square footage, like everybody's going to be buying within 5% of each other cash. And it's like we try to come up with this ARV, and acquisitions is on the phone a lot where it's like, hey, this thing's super clean from 1989. It's kind of original, but really nice. And it's like, and then another, seller is going to be like, hey, everything needs to be updated. And acquisitions in their minds, like, well, I can lock up this dated one a little bit higher because it's nice. It's like, no, the rehab's going to be the same. If it's 1989 in there, 1995 in there, like you still have to replace the countertops and the cabinets and the floors and everything, no matter what condition they're in. So I think we get too far into the weeds on like, formulas and certain markets. It's like, just look at what your cash buyers are paying before the flips. Yeah. Like if they're actively listed as a flip or if they've sold as a flip. Like
you got to really pay attention to this too when you're moving markets. Like I remember Jerry Norden, I sold him a license, and like the first deal he tried to post, he posted in Philadelphia, and they underwrit it using the 70% ARV formula, and they had it at like 70K, and it was just stagnant. And he's like, I don't get it. It's 70% ARV. We follow the formula. Our repair estimate is dialed in. And then I go open up God mode. I look at God mode, and there's 3 other flips that have happened that year on that street, and everyone's paying 40, 45. Like 70% ARV doesn't work if guys can buy them for 40, 45.
Right. Exactly.
You need to sell us at 40, 45 because that's what buyers are paying for this exact property on this street.
Yeah.
The other thing too that's critical is you're going to see a lot of stuff that other wholesalers acquire, but other buyers, when they're wholesaling, the contract's recorded the original price.
Yes.
My price all the time is I'm paying 30, 40, 50,000 more. So you got to be very careful too to see what transpired because they didn't know that house was assigned because it's only showing the original contract, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table too.
Yeah. So on that one, actually, it wouldn't have been 40. It would have been 60. Because there's probably a 20K assignment fee. But that's where we would be assigning. We got to have it under contract at 40, and then we'll assign it at like 50 to 60.
Yeah, and the way to figure that out is see if the property was listed on the MLS and went through an agent. Because if you see it listed on the MLS at 60,000 and it closes at 60,000, like that's what the buyer paid for.
Sure.
If you look at the data and it shows it was never listed on the MLS and all of a sudden it was just sold for 45 grand, now you're like, all right, that was probably a wholesaler that assigned it and they put their fee in there too, so it probably sold for 60 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So like that's the way to look for that is, was it listed, did it go through an agent, or was it wholesale, was it off market? Because that's a good point. People don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point of this. It's like, don't just see a bunch of cash transactions. Like this morning I bought a deal. A guy called me and was like, hey, look at this. I'm walking the dogs. I'll give you an answer in 10 minutes. I immediately go upstairs, go on the computer, pull it up, run my comps. Okay, I see one that was retailed like 324. I know the guy that retailed. I said, hey, it looks like you just bought this at like 182. He goes, yeah, it was a great deal. I sold it at 320. Cool. My guy wanted 180 for it. I call him up. I go, what would you pay for this one? He says, 187 and a half. I said, oh, okay. I already know if I want to flip it to him, I can make $7,500. I call him up. I go, give me a $2,500 discount. I buy it. Sure. I go, here's your deal, 10 grand, 5 minutes, because I knew the difference. I knew that he bought that. He's direct to seller, so I knew what he really paid. And you're just arbitraging. We're playing data and making quick decisions.
Yeah, the data's there. Your comps to your buyers, like people going strictly off of formula just don't understand underwriting a deal. Like that's not underwriting. That's just putting numbers into an Excel sheet. Like you have in this market, since it shifted in 22, like you have to really be an expert at real estate and underwriting and understanding how much your buyer's gonna make on the deal. Like if you go into dispo with the mindset of how is my buyer gonna make money on this, then you're gonna make money on it. If you go into it, how am I gonna make money on it, and don't give a shit about your buyer, you're not going to make any money.
Not only are you not going to make any money, you're going to have a horrible reputation. So no one's going to look at your deals because you're sending out a bunch of BS.
Exactly.
What are you hoping your buyers, most buyers, I say I like to make 10% net on my deals. Everyone's different. What do you kind of price according, what are your buyers looking to make in today's market net profit?
I would say that's about right.
10%. So someone buys a $300,000 deal and 50,000 remodel, you price it in and make sure they're making about 35, 40,000 bucks.
And like, we're always shooting for at least that in the deal for our buyers. Yeah. Like if it can be sweeter than that during a negotiation, great. Because like buyers are going to tell you, I want to make 15 or 12% net, and it's like they'll take it 10%.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like you got to understand that too when it comes to negotiation. But until you understand and you're a master at whatever product you're selling, you're just not going to get to the 1%. You know what I mean? It's like the best people in this industry that are doing the best are experts at the product. Like you can sell anything. Like you can put somebody in a chair, give them leads and a script, and they can do deals, whether it's wholesaling real estate or solar or shingles or whatever the hell it is. Until you truly understand the product you're selling and understand what your buyers are looking at, like you're not going to get to the next level.
Yeah.
It really takes being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And like learning so much in a short amount of time, where you become an expert in whatever you're selling. And then now all of a sudden you're having better conversations with buyers because you're an expert as well.
Yeah.
And they're not beating the shit out of you. Like there's a certain
level of respect
when you understand the product and you understand how they make money. Like it's just a better conversation. You're going to build way better relationships with your buyers, your flippers, and your
because you're not wasting their time.
Yeah.
The most expensive thing is your time.
Yeah.
It's the one thing. Money comes and goes. Time does not.
Yeah. Right.
So when you're calling buyers and you're wasting their time on dumb shit, like
they hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put them on DND, do not disturb. You call me on one day, waste my time and play games. DND, do not disturb, do not answer, forget it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like on acquisitions, we're having 45-minute conversations with sellers. Like they're at a low point usually. They're distressed. Like you got to have a lot of empathy. Like when I'm on the phone with a buyer, you might bullshit for a minute if you're buddies.
What's the price? What's the
But
deal?
It's just like it's a numbers thing. Yeah. Like buyers they're business they're entrepreneurs. Like they care about the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So you got to like know that really well, where you're not, looking all over the place to get answers for them. That's why I said, like, in the listing or the marketing you're sending out to them, have everything on one page, one email, where it's like, this is everything. Here's the photos. Here's the comps. Here's the exit strategy that would work best. And, here's all the information I have. Here's the condition. Here's everything. Here's the price. Here's the ARV. Like, here's the package. Because, like, the worst thing's when you're on the phone with a buyer and they ask you a simple question. You're just like, oh, I don't know. Is it occupied? I don't know. It's like, you got to know this deal so
You're asking
good.
me for hundreds of thousands of dollars and you don't know, like.
Yeah, we make 20-something grand on a wholesale deal on average. Like, let's earn that money and not just be lazy about it. There's a lot of lazy people out there.
Most people are lazy. I did some a little due diligence on you. I watch your page and whatnot. You have an obsessive compulsive mindset. You're probably the same guy that wakes up every day at the same time, hitting your cold plunge, working out. That's just who you are in your person. Have you always been like, I want to delve into your story of like, you've only been in this business 3 years. I want to understand, where did you come from? How did you get this mentality? Where did you learn everything? Like, let's get into who is Tony Mon. I know you're at the top of the mountain, but you don't just start at the top. You had to work your way up.
Yeah, I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, which is a dump outside of Chicago, and very blue collar area. My, grandparents were, from Sicily, and, my dad worked at a factory for 37 years, never missed a sick day in 37 years. My ma cleaned houses when I was a kid. So very like humble, blue collar family. And like, I would say the reason I got like obsessive and very like strict was mostly because of my dad. Like, he was really hard on me when it came to that kind of stuff. There was a story I told on one of my reels one time where, like, he was working, 16-hour days and stuff, and I decided to like mow the lawn for him one day, so he didn't have to come home after a long day and mow. And he gets home, and I thought he was gonna be like all happy somebody did it for him. And he comes in, he's like, can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, he's like, hey, who the fuck mowed the lawn? And I was like, I did. And he's like, you fucked it all up. Come outside. And I like walk outside, and he remowed the lawn, like, to teach me a lesson. But like, I thought I did a good job, but I don't know what the lesson was, but like, that's how I grew up. So it's like,
how you do those small things is how you do everything.
Yes, that breaks it down. Maybe my dad could have said that probably better, but instead of just fucked it up.
Yeah.
But he was really like obsessive compulsive, and I think that just kind of was the way he raised me. So that was like the beginning of it. And my childhood was pretty chaotic. My brother was sick all the time. He had 2 heart transplants. I stayed with a lot of different people. I had to grow up kind of fast and independent because a lot of focus was on my brother, and it was like, Tony will be fine, Had a really good group of friends in my teenage years, and then my best friend, I basically held my best friend in my arms while he bled to death after an accident. And that was at 17. And then from 17 to 22, I just spiraled out of control. Like, drugs, like, me and Eric used to live together back then in our early 20s. And he always, talks about smoking crack and all that. Like, that was, like, me and him were like thick as thieves back then. And almost to the point where like nobody else would hang out with us because we were both so like, we were just, drug addicts, and alcoholics. So I spiraled out of control after that. And then at 22 years old, got in a bar fight, accidentally killed somebody. He ended up being an off-duty police officer. I got charged with first-degree murder. And then like a year and a half later, I went to trial and was found not guilty on self-defense.
Wow.
And then I was 24 when I got out of jail and out of trouble.
Do you think that was good that happened, that got you out of?
It got me out of it got me off my path, you know? And
Spending time in jail.
Well, and I didn't spend that whole year and a half in jail. But the time I did spend in jail, I was either in jail or on house arrest during that time. because I was able to get out and work. But like the time I did spend in jail, like I just remember like this isn't what I want to do or who I want to be, obviously. Yeah. And no matter what happens, I was like, I don't care if I go to prison for the rest of my life or I'm a free man. Like I'm like, life changes right now. Like I made that decision really early in that situation. And then when I did get out, I was still on probation from another charge I had for like 6 months. But the minute that was done, I literally just packed all my stuff, moved. I was living in Chicago at the time, moved from Chicago to San Diego, $3,500 to my name, me and my dog and my pickup truck.
What kind of dog?
He was a pit mix the pound.
I have a pit mix too.
It was me and him rolled out to San Diego. I had no plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. This was the very end of 2008. And all I knew was construction. I was walking on construction sites like, can I sweep floors for $10 an hour? And everybody's like, we're mass laying off. It was 08. It was, the market had just crashed. And I couldn't get a real job anywhere because my record was so bad. My criminal record was so bad. So I ended up answering an ad on Craigslist. It was like a gig ad for build 10 beach cruisers every morning for like $100 cash at this shop that was just starting. And I was like, all right, that'll keep me afloat. You know, I was 25 years old and went there, like I was an hour early, ended up getting hired for that. And then within like 2 weeks, all 10 bikes I was building every morning were being sold like that afternoon. So the guy who owned it ended up being my business partner later, but he was like, hey dude, just work for me full time. I was like, all right. So I worked for him for like a year and then negotiated a split. Quick story. So he, after a year at the shop, at the bike shop that he had started, he then bought a dilapidated house in Poway, California. And he's like, I don't have any money left. I just put all my money into this house. He's like, can you help me flip this house? And if you work for 3 months on this house, I'll give you a percentage of the bike shop. And I was like, cool. So for 3 months, didn't get paid, didn't anything. I worked my ass off, remodeled this house. And then the next year, I started getting a percentage of the business. Ended up a couple years later opening my own shop and by San Diego State. I shared a wall with a falafel restaurant over there. And this is when Yelp just started, right?
My sister was one of the first employees. Yeah.
For Yelp?
Wow. She's still there?
Wow. So nobody, like I just heard of Yelp, right? It just so happened this falafel restaurant, right, that shared a wall in this strip mall by San Diego State was the #1 rated restaurant like in the country on Yelp. Right. Wow. So it went from like kind of busy to like a line around the building.
Great exposure for your bikes.
Well, they came to me and said, how can we buy you out of your lease? Because we want to break this wall down and expand. We have so many people, we can't serve everybody. So I sell them the lease for like 50 grand. And then the guy, Scott, who owned the shop I originally started at, I was like, dude, like, what do we do now? And he's like, let's both put 50 grand in an account. Let's go to China and we'll start manufacturing our own beach cruisers. So that's exactly what we did. We go to China, we go to the Canton Fair out there, we go to all these factories, we find a factory to manufacture our bikes, and then we started direct importing and doing distribution all up and down, you know, California out here to Arizona, and then ultimately opened a big retail shop in San Diego. And that was probably 2014-ish, or probably 2013. And that's like when everything changed. Like started making a ton of money. Our margins were huge. We were buying bikes for $30, selling them for $350. Wow. And we were, you know, wholesaling them all to all these shops. I was driving up and down the coast, going to all these bike shops, wholesaling bikes. It was like a really good era in my life. Like I had this new lease on life. I got out of all this trouble, got out to California, and I was just like, I'm just gonna put my head down and work. Like that's all I'm gonna focus on is like just getting better every day and being positive. And like we were saying earlier, dude, I was obsessed with it. Like I was working 7 days a week for years. Like people say that, but I was to the point where I had an 8-year relationship that fell apart because I just could not take a day off. Like I was just so obsessed. Like it was just like,
what do you think created that obsession? Like what was the driving you?
I think I was scared.
Was that new lease on life?
I think I was scared to go back to who I was, you know? And I was just like, if I just stay, and I kind of have a touch of that now. I absolutely have a touch of that now, where it's like that person I was like, it feels like a different person, like at this point in my life. But like, I'm so scared of like becoming that again with drugs or just that mentality I had, where it's like, I just got to stay super busy all the time to like kind of calm the demons trying to get me, you know? Yeah. I say it like all the time. It's like, I got a demon inside me and I don't know why, if I was born with it or something, but it's like, I don't want that negative energy I'm wired with to come out. So I just stay obsessed with like positive things, whether it be work or working out or adventure. You know, I like to off-road and mountain bike and stuff like that, but I rarely sit down. Like I didn't have a TV for like 18 years. Like I can't watch TV. I can't do anything. I can't sit still. My girlfriend always complains because like Sunday morning she wants to cuddle in bed. It's like I'm up at 6, like in the cold plunge and the sauna, and I'm working out. She like gets up at 9, and I already had this like full morning. And she like gets up. She's like, "Oh, can I get some coffee?" I'm like, "Let's get up. Let's go do something. Like let's hop on the Harley. Let's go off." Like I'm just like like that. But
so what happened with so you guys are crushing. You're going up. You know, your margins are huge. You're wholesaling. You open a big shop. What transpires?
Yeah. So that was a wild wave. So like we started doing really, really well, and life was good. I had it structured just right. Managers in place, mechanics, best mechanics in town, really good salespeople, great team, to the point where I didn't really have to, like, I started becoming like a nuisance to be around. Like I'd walk in the shop and everybody just be like, "You're just kind of getting it, like, just go home. Like, we got this." Like, it was kind of like that. Like, it was such a well-oiled machine. And then I opened up a couple other shops, and then what happened was the Bird scooters and the Lime bikes, all that stuff popped up out of nowhere in like 2018, I think it was. And we went from, you know, selling religiously 10 to 15 bikes a day to like 2. And we went from renting 100 bikes a day to 3. Like nobody wanted to walk in a bike shop because there was free bikes on every corner and scooters and all this stuff. So what happened was we were like, holy smokes, like this is like a big
black
deal.
swan event for a bike shop.
Exactly.
He picks up a first down.
Oh man, look it. I gotta teach my man Zach how to throw a football, but he's teaching me so much today in real estate. I learned so much. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And look, you guys, I learned how to take this trash to cash, and my man taught me everything. It was a true masterclass today.
Guys, if you want to see more content like this, stay tuned every week. We're going to be updating the station. We're going deep. We're throwing touchdowns. We're doing short passes. We're bringing you everything you want to know about real estate. Turning trash to cash. That's what we do. That's what we excel in. And we'll also enhance our spiral throws.
Baby.
Working on it, baby.
Come on, give me a good one. Give me a good one.
Have a good weekend.
There we go. All right, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, and we're like,
So
what?
you never could see coming.
How could you ever see that coming?
Yeah.
So what happened was Bird Scooters sends out a mass email to all these bike shops, and all these bike shops hated them. Like they were walking around slashing their tires and cutting the brake cables and stuff. And Bird sends out a mass email to all these shops in town. They're like, "Hey, does anybody want to maintain these scooters for us?" And we were like the only shop that called them. And we're like, "Yeah, well, we have a huge warehouse up north. Like we'll drop them all off at our warehouse, and we'll fix all the flat tires. We'll adjust the brakes on them, everything." So within like 45 days, they paid us $67,000 to fix flat tires. Like, because they were just hemorrhaging money back then.
Yeah.
So we did that for a while. Then they brought the service in-house. So we kind of lost that. Then I'll say something that might be incriminating. But we had a connection in China, obviously. And back then, Bird was using like a Segway scooter. It wasn't proprietary to their brand, right? So Bird would just put like their
logo on it,
and they would put their software on it on a chip on the head of it, and take the Segway one off. Well, our connection in China could get the stock Segway computers and dashboards for them. So we didn't know if this was going to work, but we ordered like just one box of them, right? And there was, all these scooters that they just left behind because they were too hard to fix or whatever, and they would just leave them at our warehouse. So we took their head off of one of them, put the stock one on, and it worked like a consumer scooter.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, shit, all right, let's put these on eBay. So we ended up getting a pallet of these things. We put them on eBay. We probably had, I think it was like $3.47 into like the computer chip and the plastic dashboard thing. And I was selling like 30 of these a day for like $199. So I turned one of my garages at my house into just like a shipping warehouse.
That's incredible. What I love about this story is it just shows like just how true of a like entrepreneur you are. I always say the greatest. We always get different cards, right? Like when you're in business, you don't know if you're gonna get a real flush or you're gonna get pocket aces or you're gonna get just like the worst cards. Every hand is different. What makes the greatest entrepreneurs is when they take that shit hand and they turn it into their biggest wins. Like that is so incredible how you took something that probably decimated 90% of the bike shops.
Yeah.
And pivot that into a way to earn incredible income.
Yeah, we were just trying to figure it out. So like that, it was like every which way. It's like if all the money from that used to be pouring into bicycle shops is now pouring into all these like rideshare bikes and scooters, like how do we get a piece of that pie?
Yeah.
And worked with them, worked against them a little bit. But then that era kind of slowed down because then everybody figured out you could sell these things on eBay. So we went from selling them for $200 to selling them for like, $30, because there was too much competition. So after that, I had somebody that worked for me that also worked part-time at Lyft, and Lyft had all these scooters, right? And he's like, hey, we're just like recycling the scooters because now we're probably close to a year into this. And all the companies started figuring out, well, people are just stealing these things off the street. Like we need to come up with our own scooter, right? But they all had these mass inventories of all these old Segways. So I go and talk to the warehouse manager in San Diego at Lyft. And I'm like, what are you going to do with these 700 scooters you got? And he's like, I'm just going to pay somebody to recycle them for us. And I was like, I'll give you $15 each for them. He's like, done. So I just buy 700 scooters. I bring them all up to my warehouse. I got old pictures of my truck and trailer all filled with these things. I kept, bringing them up to the warehouse. We took all the, the Segway dashboards and chips, put them in there, cleaned them all up, and then sold those 700 scooters at our shop for like $300 or $250 a piece.
Wow.
And then that kept us, going. And then, like you said, Robert, all the other bike shops went out of business. Like we were.
Then you're the last man standing.
We were the last man standing. We didn't owe anybody any money. Like nothing was on terms. We had good relationships with all our distributors, with China, with everybody. We didn't screw anybody over in this scooter era where everybody else did because they couldn't pay their bills because they didn't pivot. Then COVID happens, right? And COVID happens. China calls us and they're like, it's getting really bad over here. You guys have like close to 2,000 bikes over here ready to ship. If you don't ship them now, like I don't know if you're ever going to get them.
Wow. So
Scott calls me. He's like, do you think we should ship them? What do you think about this COVID thing? I was like, let's just ship them over here because who knows? So we decided to ship them all over in containers. This was then 2020, early 2020.
And I'm guessing bike sales then skyrocket.
The containers hit port literally in April. And then like May 1st, all the news stories went from everybody's out of toilet paper to everybody, there's a huge bike shortage.
You know, I was in LA at this period, and for Christmas 2019, I ordered a Peloton bike. Okay. Bought it for $2,500. The next summer, I sold that bike for like $8,000.
That's crazy. And I bought your bike after that, fast forward 2 years, for $700.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Literally.
Like,
so that's what happened, man. All these other bike shops went out of business because they didn't pivot. We kept all these relationships up. We had a bunch of capital and inventory, and we just said, let's just get as many bikes in as we can and see what happens. And then the news started saying everybody's out of bikes, and we had a line around our building for the next close to 6 months.
Wow.
May of 2020, we sold, I think it was like 1,200 bikes that 1 month. And
you're probably selling them at crazy high prices.
It was
right?
It was insane. You could
Supply and demand.
Oh, dude, there
What
was
did
people.
you make that month? $1 million?
Made $500,000 that month.
Wow.
From
a bike shop.
We would, dude, and our bike
Incredible.
shop was it wasn't huge. Our bike shop was about 2,000 square feet, and we were doing. Historically, we were doing like 1.6 million a year out of that shop, which nobody could even understand.
$500,000 a month.
And then all of a sudden, like
just
$500,000 a month, and then every month after that was damn near it for a long time. But we were having $40,000, $50,000 days selling $500 beach cruisers. Like,
wow.
That's a lot of sales.
Yeah.
It was insane.
That's a lot of nuts that you had to say ship it. Think about it. You didn't know.
Yeah.
No one had a crystal ball, but you took a chance and you got rewarded for the risk.
I thought, like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, we own the inventory once we ship them. Like, we have to pay for them up front when they ship. And it's like, the worst case scenario is, all right, our capital goes way down, but we have all this inventory we own. Eventually, we're going to sell them, you know? And I was just like, I just remember that conversation. It was like, I was at home, like I remember that moment because I was just like, dude, let's just, like, we got the money. Let's just ship these bikes over.
You couldn't have done that if you didn't have the capital. This is why I always try to keep zero debt on my businesses. Investorlift, we never have debt. We have our credit card bill. We pay that off every month. I never put debt on my businesses. And I always we have what we call our war chest. We move cash into the war chest for black swan events or to take advantage of opportunities when opportunities present themselves. It's really important when you're building a business to go build up that war chest or have credit lines, have capital for when black swan events hit or when opportunities like this arise. If you didn't have that cash, you couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
None of the other bike shops did that.
Dude,
you had the cash, you did it.
And this was the thing, like, I paid myself like $500 a week for years.
Yeah.
Because we were making a lot of money, but I was like, we just made a decision as business owners and partners where it was like, we're not going to start taking like true salary until we have $1 million worth of inventory. Because like, that'll be our like safety net, right? And like you said, we didn't put anything on terms. Like, we literally kept buying inventory and built up this huge inventory of $1 million to where, and thank God we did that. But I remember like our account had several $100,000 in it. We owned $1 million of inventory. We just had a big month. And this would have been, before COVID and all this stuff. This was years before. But I remember having a conversation with my partner, and I was like, this is probably the time we could start paying ourselves, right? And he's like, yeah, I think we're good. He's like, just take 50 grand out. And like that, dude, that was like unbelievable to me, after everything I'd been through and like, holy shit, like this month I made 50 grand.
You said just a few minutes ago, you went out there and you're ready to build bikes for $100 basically a day.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a major transformation, but it wasn't luck. You put yourself in a position to win the game. You are, meticulous, and you are perseverance and obsessive compulsive. So it wasn't by chance or luck you created these opportunities.
Yeah,
massive discipline.
Yeah,
massive. And it was. I enjoyed every second of it, to be honest. Like it was awesome. I still enjoy that kind of stuff. You know, being obsessed with something, all the hard work.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like, you know, it'd be miserable. It'd be a tortured life to not be like that for me. You know, people will say to me a lot, like, you know, even my girlfriend or friends or whoever, they're like, man, like it's a like I was just in Mexico for a few days. Everybody was sleeping until 9 o'clock. I'm up at 6, like going outside. I'm walking down the ocean. I'm like going to the coffee shop. I'm like doing stuff. I'm going like the Baja 1000 race. I want to go check that out. And it's like everybody's like, man, that's like torture. And I'm like, no, it would be torture for me to lay in bed till 9 o'clock. Like I'd chew my arm off. Like I can't do it. But it was a great era of my life. And thank God we had all that inventory, $1 million worth of inventory, because when the Bird scooters and all that stuff showed up, like we were selling inventory to kind of pay ourselves, you know, during some slow months. Like there was months we didn't make any money technically in the business, but we were still getting paid because we were selling off some inventory. So it was a huge, you know, win for us, because if we didn't have that, we might not have survived just like every other shop. And we wouldn't have been able to take advantage of the COVID situation, you know? So it was like all these little decisions that we were very disciplined about that ended up paying off really well in the end. And then got into wholesaling, ended up selling that business, and then like just switched my obsession to wholesaling.
That was a quick transition. So how did you exit out of the bikes? Did you sell your equity to your partner? Or
No.
You guys both just sell the company?
Why?
We both got out of it. It was there's a lot of cash that goes in and out of that business. And what happened was so every bike shop in the country got a tax audit after COVID. Like the IRS was like, this was one industry that did a ton. And a lot of these bike shops are mom and pop shops that probably don't have their books lined up. So like everybody I know in the bike industry got a tax audit right after COVID, right? So we were going through this tax audit, and this was when I ended up making the decision to move to North Carolina and start wholesaling. So I was trying to juggle the two. It's a heavy cash business, which I'm not there all the time now. I was worried about that. And then we're going through this tax audit, and it was just like the perfect time for me to just like kind of dump it. Like didn't get as much as I wanted for it probably, but well, definitely. But it was the right time for me to get out of it and just focus on, you know, the new venture. But it was a great industry for me.
So how do you transition to bikes and no experience in real estate or anything else other than fixing up your partner's house a little bit, which is super cool, and obviously construction background? What was the impetus? You sold, but then it's like, okay, I'm going to get into wholesaling. Obviously, you reconnected with Eric, or there was another opportunity. So what transpires? You sell, and then you're out in California, and what transpires?
Yeah, so me and Eric didn't talk for like 6 years after I went to jail and all that happened. When I got out and I moved to California, like I cut off everybody back home, and Eric was still, you know, in the depths of addiction. So I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. So I'm moving, and I'm not talking to anybody ever again. Like I need to get as far away from it as possible. Well, like a year later, he got sober, and I was hearing that he was sober, but I just was kind of like, well, good for him, whatever.
Don't want to risk it.
Don't want to risk it. And like 6 years later, I'm out at my bike shop in San Diego in Pacific Beach, and I get a voicemail. I listen to it. It's like, what up, dude? It's Kleiner. I'm here in San Diego. Got your number from Cal. Are you still out here? Give me a call. I'm in this place called Pacific Beach. And I was like, well, that's cool. So I call him. I think we went and had a cigar, and it was just like we saw each other yesterday. Yeah. So, and that was about 10 years ago now. So we just kind of stayed in touch, and his timeshare exit company was just starting to build. And it was just fun to we lived with each other at like the depths of our lives, you know, highly addicted to drugs. I was going through a murder trial, and then we don't speak or see each other for 6 years. And then all of a sudden, like, I have this successful bike shop on the West Coast. He has this successful business on the East Coast, you know, and it was just cool to like be supportive of each other now in a more positive way. And our conversations were about business and life, and it was just awesome. So we stayed in touch during this whole time, and I would fly out to Florida. He would fly out to California, and once he started going through the lawsuits with his company, like, you know, I go out to Florida and just kind of hang out with him during all that. And then right when it was all over, he was like, we were both talking like, we should do something together, you know, what's the next step? And we had all these different ideas, and somebody brought wholesaling to him, and he just calls me. He's like, you ever heard of this wholesaling? I was like, no. And he's like, yeah, you just get contracts and flip the contracts. You can make like 20, 30 grand on them. He's like, I'm going to get some leads going and see if I can lock up a deal. And then if this is, he's like, I think this is a winner. If it is, like, do you want to go in business together? And I was like, yeah, like, let's keep the conversation going. So he started getting leads coming in. He started locking up some deals, and he's like, dude, this is real. Like, we should do this.
I like how you guys just talk about it passively, right? Just rolling up the sleeves. Yo, bro, you heard of this thing wholesaling? Yeah, I got not really. What is it? Yeah, you just get these contracts, you call a couple people, you make 20. I like how it's so passive, just so nonchalant. Oh, that seems cool. Yeah, we could do that. We'll do some wholesaling. It's so funny to me, right?
Yeah, and then like a few months later, they're doing $500,000 months.
Crazy. It's like, yo, you hear about this thing called selling drugs? Yeah, it's great. You roll up some weed, you sell it. The margins are good. Rob, you want to do some weed selling? Let's do this. Sounds pretty basic, pretty easy. Wait, what do you mean it's legal? It's legal. The wholesaling is legal? Yeah, that sounds better. Okay, cool.
It's funny because I think because of our past, like once you go through it, you know, I was facing life in prison.
That's gotta be
Eric
insane.
was on his deathbed, almost addicted to crack. And it's like, once you hit those lows in your life, like whatever your rock bottom is, like decisions and like things just become easier and less stressful in terms of like being like fearful of them. You know, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? We start this wholesaling thing.
And it blows up. You're not facing life in prison.
Yeah, it's like,
roll on to the
work at
next
McDonald's. I'll drive Uber if I need to.
Yeah,
that's a great
like,
point, right? We can't think like that. I've never endured anything that you've endured. I can't even come close to that. So for you to say that makes very good sense.
Yeah, like people like say, oh, you're so like even keeled. Like, and when I post like a call with a seller or a buyer on my Instagram, everybody's like, you just stay so like level. It's like, I didn't used to be like that. I was a freaking hothead, you know? Yeah. But that didn't serve
Eric's
me
not
well.
as calm as you are.
He is not.
He is not as
but
calm
we're
as
a good, you know, I think
yang.
we're a good, yeah.
You're both very high energy, though.
High energy.
You both have high propensity for action.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But like our personalities are different, obviously. Yeah. And styles of sales, too. It's like, I think people, you know, see somebody on social media or hire somebody or pay for some type of sales training, and they think, oh, like for me to be a good salesperson, I got to emulate this person. It's like, you got to emulate the process, but you got to put your personality behind it and who you truly are. Like if I tried to act like Eric Klein on the phone,
you would sound like an idiot.
I wouldn't get anywhere. Right. It works great for him. Yeah. If he tried to act like me on the phone, it wouldn't work for him. Yeah. And that goes with everybody. It's like if you have a good process, like you gotta put your own personality behind it and be true, because that's what sales are relationships. Whether it's a long-term relationship with a buyer that you're gonna have hopefully for years, or a 45-minute relationship you're gonna have with a seller, to connect with that person and build that rapport, you can't fake it. Like that's gonna shine through.
It's all authenticity.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like just learn a process and put your spin on it.
Yeah. I love what you said. Repeat it for the audience. This is great. You can't emulate the person, but you can emulate the process.
Right.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I love that. That's gold.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my story.
This is a wild story.
So you guys joint ventured. Hey, have you heard of this thing, wholesaling? You do a contract, you make 20. Sounds great. Let's do it. Cool.
Yeah.
And then you guys get it, and then boom, you've been off to the races.
Off to the races.
Do you love this business? I mean, compared to the bikes and your other entrepreneurial endeavors, What do you love about this business compared to your other businesses?
I love a deal. I mean, I love a deal. It's like that'll never go away.
Yeah,
like
it's in
when,
the blood.
Yeah, when you get a deal, get something under contract, and now it's like I love dispositions because it's like, oh man, what can I do with this thing?
Yeah.
Like how can I create something out of this contract, you know? And then it's just like putting the package together, having those conversations with buyers, and then ultimately assigning it. Like I still get a high from that. Like it's
when you get that
so much
contract
fun.
signed, 20 racks in the bank, like I'm doing it once a week now. I'm doing Dispo Live every Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing better. There's not a better high in this world. Like I sell Investorlift software licenses for 35, 40, 50 grand, like all day long. There's nothing better though than being there in the product with a contract. I just did one last Wednesday, 22-year-old kid. He had a property posting. I sold it for him, $5,000 above ask, made him a $31,000 rip in 84 minutes. Like it feels so good when you're like,
so
right,
good.
Fire in the contract.
It feels so good.
Now, do you get 50% of that? No, I'm just kidding.
I let him keep it. I let him keep it.
That's
awesome. I don't need my cut.
Shout out to Roberto. There's your JV partner right there. 100% free.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, Dispo, what's the URL? We'll drop the URL on the screen. I think it's dispoday.com. You can come on, you can submit your deal, and then once per week, we will go sell one. I want to have you on Dispo Day.
Dude, anytime.
That'd be sick. I want to start bringing you're one of the top Dispo salespeople in the country, possibly the best. It would be awesome for people to just see you like doing it live on a deal.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to do that. That would be so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said what you said though, because it's like I do a lot of coaching now, and coaching is very gratifying. Like one of my favorite things I've ever done is teaching, because once that person, like it's more gratifying to help somebody make their first 20 grand than it is for me to personally make 100 grand.
Yes.
Like
100%.
there's something like, I think it's just in our blood, like our ancestry. We're passing down knowledge and watching somebody do that. Like it's something that feeds us.
Yeah.
And it's the most gratifying thing I've ever done in my life is coaching. But like you said, it's like you can sell Investorlift packages all day long, but you don't get that same gratification as like a deal.
You help some kids sell his first deal.
I feel the same way about like the coaching side of things, where it's like I could coach 24/7. I love it so much, but like the actual sales process of getting a client for coaching is not as fun as like doing a wholesale deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, but it's like
the thrill of the hunt. You know what we call Artemis mode? Artemis mode? Artemis is the god of the hunt. You're hunting for the perfect buyer for the deal.
I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, that's where we came up with the name.
Surprised you didn't name your kid Artemis.
Maybe the next one.
Dude.
What's crazy stuff to you? What is it? Bike riding?
Yeah,
motorcycles?
I got motorcycles. I love off-roading. I got a pre-runner truck out here that, go out to the desert, go down to Mexico. We pre-run. I've ran down the Baja Peninsula multiple times. I like downhill mountain biking. Like
you're an adrenaline guy.
Adrenaline, but it's like that's when I feel like so.
Yeah, but
calm
you know it'd be
focused.
fun though if you get some boys and then you can do those kinds of activities.
Yeah.
It takes a few years before they're old enough, but
yeah, I'll be an old man.
Wait, so
by
how
then.
long have you lived in Arizona? Did you just move out here with Eric?
Yeah.
Remember,
like since July.
remember Eric?
I know when Eric
and
just moved out here.
They were on
Yeah.
this couch sitting right.
Yeah.
Eric was sitting right there. I was sitting right here. I was like, they were just visiting for the day. They got their flight early. He's like, "Yo, I'm gonna pop by." I'm like, "So tell me what you want to do." He told me what I want to do. I said, "Eric, you need to move to Scottsdale this year."
Yeah. Thank God you said that.
Do you love it
Yes.
out here? It's gotta. Yeah.
Then the
Makes
next
sense.
day, we were filming again. We remember with Josh Snow and Eric Klein.
Yeah.
And he said, I just called Tony. I said, we're moving to Scottsdale. He's like, Tony was ecstatic.
Oh, dude,
This
because
is
I
good
was.
for your lifestyle.
It is, and I was trying to get him and Shiloh to move here instead of Raleigh, like back then. Like I had just done. My dog passed away after 13 years, and I just took like a month off. And I just I had a cab over camper on my pickup truck. I was still living in San Diego, and I just brought my mountain bike, and I camped and mountain biked and hiked from San Diego to Arizona, up through Utah, Idaho, all the way to the Oregon coast and back down California. I either hiked or mountain biked every day for a month. it was epic. But like after that trip, and I had spent a ton of time here in Scottsdale before being so close in San Diego. And I was like, this was the transition, like we were getting into wholesaling. And I kept telling Eric and Shiloh, like, we gotta like move, you guys gotta move out west. Like, I can't leave this place. Like, how about Scottsdale, you know? And Shiloh she just didn't want to move out west. So it took like 3 years. And like every
got
6
you here finally. You're welcome.
Finally,
You're welcome for the final push.
Yeah.
He was probably already there. You
so
just need a
happy.
little push.
Setting up text marketing is a pain in the butt, but with Investorlift, it's plug and play. With a single click of a button, you can send out thousands of texts to the most qualified and relevant buyers for your deal. Click on the link below to see how it can help your deal today.
So happy, when they, I remember, well, they were coming out here and I was like, oh, thank God. Cause like I knew Shiloh would love it out here. And I mean, Eric, loves everything. So, when they got back and we sat down and like, we were really talking about it. And I was just like, I'll leave tomorrow. Like, let's go, So it was never a question, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad they came out here too. I ultimately was going to come out here no matter what. It was just a matter of time. Like I told them getting into the wholesaling, I'm like, I have like a 5-year max in North Carolina. Like I can't stay longer than that. I'd be miserable. Yeah. It's just like you said, it just doesn't fit my lifestyle. Yeah. No. So coming out here, like I bought a house in Cave Creek. I got over an acre, got all my trucks.
So perfect for you. You got the motorcycles, the desert, the trails. It's very conducive to
it's everything.
What you want to do.
I love it. You bounce to California, you bounce up to Utah, you got Sedona.
It's the best out here. This is the best spot.
Have you mountain biked up in Sedona yet?
Yes. Oh yeah,
years ago. So great.
I've been mountain biking up there forever, pacing. Even around here, dude, there's great mountain biking. But yeah, tons of off-roading. Like it's literally, for me, it's like a playground.
Did you get another dog?
No.
You got an acre up there to let him have a haven.
Yeah, that's a tough, I don't know. He was like, Tank was such a good dog.
It's a good name.
And I got him like at a, low point in my life. And it was just like, it's just so hard to get another dog. Yeah. Like I feel like he was just the perfect, like a one and done kind of thing. Like he was just perfect. So it's like anything else
I'm a huge dog
wouldn't
lover,
be perfect. Yeah.
I'm just gonna gift you a little baby dog for Christmas, and I'm just gonna plop him on your lap.
This guy needs a pit bull,
and
or he needs another big dog. I could tell.
And then you'll be like, no. And then as soon as you have that dog on your lap, you're.
Yeah, I do. I love pit mixes, dude. They're just
you remind me
from the pound.
You remind me of a pit bull. You've got this like demeanor about you, like this guy looks fucking intimidating, but then you're like a big teddy bear.
Yeah.
You go up and you meet this guy, I'm like, he's all tatted up. I'm like, this is a tough motherfucker. And you shake your hand, good for him. Like, this guy's been through some shit. And then you're like, he's a big teddy bear.
Yeah.
That's who you are.
I am, 100%.
Yeah, I can see it.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So what's the game plan for, what's the next 10 years look like for you? What are you looking to achieve? When do you exit the wholesale business? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the wholesale business, we exited this year. I want to continue coaching for the rest of my life. I think that, like I said before, like that feeds something inside me that's so gratifying. I love watching other people win. I love helping. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. On the real estate side of things, I want to, I flipped a lot of houses last year and a half with our wholesale business. I want to get into more real estate, and that's another fun challenge for me. I have plans to, with another partner of mine, to start buying some big land parcels and doing barn dominium communities with a couple different people. So that's something that I will be working on next year. I want to do some new build development kind of stuff, and just another challenge and keep it going. Just to, I don't want to ever stop doing real estate. I love flipping. I love wholesaling, and I just want to I want to continue to do more transactions, different transactions, not only for me, but the more knowledge I have with all those processes, the more I can coach too. They go hand in hand.
For sure.
So for me, it's how much more can I learn actually continuing this journey wholesaling and real estate and new builds and flipping, where that's going to transfer over to the coaching side of things too.
Well, they go hand in hand. We see so many people, we talk about these gurus, they talk about the business, but they're not actually in the business or have never done the business.
Right.
It's a joke. So I respect the fact that you are, nose deep into the business.
I mean, this morning I was on a call with, one of my students called me and he's like, the numbers are too tight on this deal. I can assign it, but maybe there's something more there. Can you call this seller for me and try to negotiate? So, and he already had it under contract, but I talked to the seller twice today for probably 45 minutes each and ended up coming up with a solution. She didn't want to come down on her price, but she's very open and willing to do a sub-2 deal, which would make it very appealing to a buyer, the way this thing's structured. And then I called the buyer, explained to him what this was, and he's excited. So I'm still doing it, like talking to sellers and buyers. It wasn't even my deal, it was a student's deal. And it's just so fun. I mean, it's like wholesaling is fun.
Yeah.
It's a grind, but it's like the negotiations and being creative. Like it fills a creative part of your mind too. When there's problems that need to be solved in wholesaling, as we know.
Yeah.
Like there's sellers have problems, buyers have transactions have problems, but it's like figuring out those problems and being solution based is so much fun.
And the other thing that I love about Dispo too, that most people don't really think about that much. Do you ever look up the properties that you sold? Mm-hmm. I love doing that. Looking at properties that I sold years ago. And I see the photos on Investorlift because we save them in our database. And then I go and I see the Zillow posting afterwards, and you got this hoarder house that was just like falling apart. Yeah. And then you check back a few months later and you see it's just like brought back to life. Yeah. And it's got a beautiful manicured lawn and sometimes it's fun even to go drive past some of them. I remember when I was wholesaling in LA, sometimes I'd just come by a few months later, zip by, I wholesale the deal down the street. Go check it out.
There was one in
kids
Raleigh.
Playing in front, the basketball net, and you contributed to that neighborhood.
Yeah, there was one in Raleigh that, I visited this lady 3 times to get this thing under contract and figure. She had just gotten solar, she'd just done credit consolidation, her husband just died. This place was a disaster. The transaction was a disaster. And I kept going over there to explain to her how we could solve this problem. Went from a $70,000 deal to a $35,000 deal. But I truly believe that property that transaction would not have gone through without me. I don't feel like anybody else could have done this. Being creative with the lien, the solar lien, how her credit consolidation was screwing her, the house itself, there was so many ins and outs of this deal and so many hours put in to figure it out, and negotiating with the trailer mobile home park that she was moving into. And there were so many, things that you had somebody else would have. There was people in my office that were just let's just give up on it. It's too complicated. I'm like, there's a way around it.
You're consultative, you're calm. The calmness about you and the perseverance is what makes you successful. Yeah. Most people, they want the quick sugar, the booger sugar, right? They want that quick success, the quick money. Let's move on. There's other deals. You're like, no, I'm going to see this through no matter what the cost. You would have done the deal if you only made $1,000 just out of
100%.
principle to help the lady, because it's also karma. By helping those people, I say this time and time again, and staying the course, you make $1,000 there, and your next year you could have a 50 rep or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just about getting to the finish line. It's about the game, not just the score.
It's about the game for sure. There was a deal we did in Ohio where I tried hell to sell this deal. I called everybody in town, every agent, Investorlift, everything. And I could not sell this deal. And finally somebody offered. I was our first offer in a month, and I just took it. And it was it might have been exactly what we locked it up for or something. Right. Or I might have had to get a reduction just to even make it a deal, but I ended up getting a reduction from the seller of I think $30,000 or something. I think the offer was low, but I was this lady was in such a tight spot, and I was we have to get it at this price to even make a deal. Yeah. Get the reduction. I didn't sign the assignment contract yet, right? I wanted to get the reduction first, and then The seller signs the reduction the next day, comes through, and then I immediately get a call from another buyer who was almost at full price what we wanted for it, right? So now all of a sudden this became like
Ethics.
a $80,000 deal or something when I was trying to squeeze like $5,000 out of it. So I was like, holy smoke. So I never signed the assignment with the first buyer.
But did you verbally commit to the first buyer or no?
I told them I have to get a reduction to make this work.
Got it. So there wasn't a guarantee.
There wasn't a guarantee.
Okay.
So I get the reduction, get the other offer, sign off on that offer, and then the next morning I came into the office and I was just like, we got to give this lady her money back, like from the reduction. Like I couldn't sleep the night before. I'm like, this isn't an $80,000.
Nobody else would do that. Nobody else would do that.
We have to.
You would do it.
We have to
I'm
give
saying
it back.
I would do that. You would.
I
do
do
it, but I'm
hear
saying other
stories
people.
about you for doing stuff like that too.
I'm full transparent. I would.
But
do
like, yeah, to me, I was like, it's like my life isn't going to change over this 30 grand I got, but her life, she needs this money, and I couldn't sleep.
But it goes back to the karma. You give her the 30 back. It's great. She's the lady. Guess what? More positivity is coming. It's all energy. It's all
I agree
karma.
with that 100%.
So I have a question for both you guys, which leads me into this. Do you guys ever have had wholesale remorse where you guys went back, you looked at the pictures of the deals? You ever look at a deal where you're like, God, I wish I would have cherry picked this and kept it, and you sold it and you tracked it and went back and said, God, why did I sell
The last deal I ever wholesaled, the last one I ever did before we did the first webinar on Investorlift, things blew up. I wholesaled that thing. I made a $46,000 assignment on it. So good rep. But, oh boy, the flipper. Like, I think I signed that thing at I think it was like 368,000. Actually, it was 368,000. Now that property is trading in the 800s.
800. Yeah, but what did they put into it? Do you think?
Not that much. I mean, it was 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Like, it was like right before COVID, and you know, like in that area just exploded.
Yeah, I mean, you'll torture yourself looking back at all your deals. I posted something, I don't know, a year or two ago or whatever it was, where it was like, hey, done this much in assignment fees over the last 24 months. I put it on my story on Instagram, and somebody had DM'd me right after I posted it and said, imagine how much money you would have made if you would have kept all of them. And I was like,
but hindsight's 20/20. You're never gonna go broke taking a profit. The key question is this: what did you do with the capital that you made? It's not like you just put it in the bank. You're the guy that reinvests every penny. You're the guy that reinvests it. You probably don't. Do you even take a salary from Investorlift? It all goes in the company.
I pay myself $6,000 per month until last year.
There you go. So it's the
Every
same
dollar
thing. We
is going
all
back.
reinvest. It's the same mentality. You took what, $500 or something? It was nothing, a week or whatever. What was your salary at the bike?
Yeah,
exactly. You reinvested everything, and you had sweat equity in the guy's house. We're all in kind of guys. That's no one looks at that. But I guarantee you redeployed all the money you made from wholesaling, and what did that turn into? A lot more money. No one talks about that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, that's an extreme case where it's like, oh, if you kept all of them, you'd make so much more money. It's like nobody would ever do that. But it's like it did open my eyes to like there is a balance here of like, do you really have to wholesale everything?
No, I think what you do, I think the smart move to do is you get the wholesaling shop running at, get it to a couple $100,000 a month consistent. And then what you do is you put an operator in place to allow you to completely remove yourself from that business. Then you start building up the buy and hold business, but that's a completely different animal. So then you have to then pivot your focus completely over to that new animal, build that as a complete separate team, completely different systems, SOPs, all of that. And then what you do is you buy from yourself, you assign deals to yourself, and then take the best 1 in 10 deals, assign them to yourself, build up that portfolio one deal at a time.
I think you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need that's why like wholesaling is the genesis of everything else you do in real estate.
It's a foundation.
If you don't start there, you're probably going to lose money on your first flip. You're probably going to lose money on your first buy and hold. Like you need that revenue coming in. You need that active income, and you need a team, and so you can get your time back to where you can focus. And I talk to so many people that are like, I just got into real estate last year. I'm flipping my first house, but all my capital's into the house, and
So risky.
it's been 6 months. It went 3 months over, this. It went this much over budget, and it's like, without wholesaling and you don't have that active income, like all your eggs in this one basket. Like now you might make 20, 30 grand on it. You thought you were going to make
lose.
60, or you might lose. Like how many investors do you know that tell you their first deal they lost money or broke even? Like that's a very common thing. Like and you have to be direct to seller, and you have to get these contracts low enough where when you do want to decide to flip, when you have enough capital and you have enough cash coming in every month, and you're not relying on that to survive, like you get it so low and you cherry pick it where you cannot fuck it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we did on all of our flips. Like I would look at the CRM and be like, oh, this is a $50,000 assignment fee. Let me dig into this. And I'd start looking at it and be like, oh, this is $100,000 flip. Like we're keeping this. Because
Well, you
no
said
matter
you made
what.
$1 million by your 8 to 10.
12
Those are huge
deals.
spreads. You're not 10% on those. Those are probably 30, 40% cash on cash returns. But the difference is you're direct to seller. There's no middleman. There's no daisy chains on that. So you're buying so deep where the reality is you can't lose.
You can't lose.
Right.
Yeah.
And people have to understand that these flips and these deals, it's all part of the education. You got to have skin in the game in some capacity. Until you're actually in it, it's a totally different animal.
Yeah, and you're more of an authority when you can have that conversation with a seller or a buyer.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, I flip houses. I got one right here. Look up the address. I'm in the middle of the flip.
Yeah.
I got this one here. I hold a couple properties. Here's
I don't
the address.
need to wholesale it to you. I
Right.
can take it down myself.
Yeah, dude, and that
This
was
deal
That's
is
a
so
great
good, I might
leverage
take it
position.
myself.
Yeah.
that was
I love
100% a talk track I had, where it was like, hey, if I don't assign this to you, I'm closing on it.
Yeah.
So like, I'm doing you the favor.
I'm bringing you the opportunity.
I'm
That's,
bringing
the,
you
that's
that
the
all the
attitude
time.
you gotta have for
Yeah.
yourself.
100%.
On dispo, if you are all like desperate, oh, will you please buy this? Will you please buy this?
What's your
And you
number?
go,
What can you do?
Yeah.
What can you do?
No.
Whoa. When someone says that to me, I'm like, well, I wasn't really interested, but I guess I could do a lowball number, you know?
Exactly.
Totally. It's all in the tonality.
So when I get on the phones, I just go straight. I shoot straight to the point. I'm like, I got a deal, Phoenix, Arizona, Air V500 needs 50K of repairs. We're asking 300, whatever.
Yeah.
Are you interested? Yes or no?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
the way to do
interested. Okay. If I send it to you,
How fast are you going to
How-
get back to me?
how quickly you can make a decision on this? I can let you know in the next hour. Perfect.
Yeah.
Just
That's great.
if it's not good fit for you, tell me why.
Yeah.
Give me some feedback. I'm open to feedback. If you think it's priced too high, too low, whatever, give me feedback so I can give you something better that's a better fit for you next time.
Great approach.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm here to bring you value. I'm here to bring you money making opportunities. You're gonna make some money. I'm gonna make some money. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have a question for you. I want your thoughts on this. Now, when people are just getting into wholesaling, right? A lot of people try to do the full thing. They try to learn the marketing, the acquisitions, the dispo. I think that sets people up for failure. I think you should learn one side and then offload the other side. You know, like learn acquisitions first and then just JV with someone, have them
Yes.
dispo your deals. Or do it the other way. Have guys that are, have deals under contract that they need help on dispo and just become a specialist on dispo. Do you agree? Do you think you should learn one side before you try to do the whole thing?
Yeah, I think most people teach like to learn acquisitions first, right?
Yeah,
And
no, I
where
think you should do the opposite. I think you should start with dispo.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah, and I did a podcast with Jerry Norton and we talked about this, where I was like, the one true way to get into wholesaling, get into real estate, whatever, with literally zero money
Yes.
is dispo.
Yeah.
And if you build a great buyers list in one specific market and you're going to meetups and you have relationships with buyers and you understand exactly what they want to buy in that area and you start JVing deals for people, like that is truly
Zero
like the
capital.
way to get into wholesaling with no money and make really good money doing
Because
it
the marketing
and bring value.
The marketing is brutal. Like there's so many guys that come in, they drop $50,000 on Google Ads and they haven't learned the sales process yet. They don't know how to underwrite. They don't know how to close. So they like throw it all on the Amex. They rack up a $50,000 bill and then another $30,000 on coaching. And then before you know it, they're having to mortgage the house to pay off the Amex bill.
Well,
and they haven't never done a deal.
And they're not giving themselves enough runway for marketing, because how long does a deal take to close typically?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, say you get a deal in your first 30, 45 days, that might not close for another 30, 45 days maybe. So it's like, what are you going to start marketing, run out of money, have a deal in the pipeline, wait for that to close, start marketing again? Like, unless you have some capital, it's tough to get momentum wholesaling.
Yeah.
Like a little bit. You don't need a ton of capital, but you need some runway to be consistent with it.
I used to tell everyone, don't buy Investorlift until you're doing a deal a month. And then I started thinking about it more. I'm like, no, I'm actually giving bad advice. You might want to just buy Investorlift first.
Yeah.
Like that might be like, because $5,000 of marketing, maybe you're lucky if you get a deal.
Yeah.
You know? But the reason why I said you should be doing at least one deal a month is I don't want the noobs coming on and flooding the marketplace with junk deals.
Right. Right.
By the way, did you notice on Investorlift we made repair estimate and ARV mandatory this week?
No, I didn't notice.
So you now have, you can put in, we ask for minimum and maximum repair budget, like repairs low, repairs high, because it's going to be depending on scope of work. And then ARV, we're now feeding that up into a neural network that's going to start analyzing the deals to see if we can predict whether or not a deal is going to sell, like right up the deal posting based on that and a bunch of other characteristics. For guys that are JVing, this is going to be killer because every deal posting will have like a score. You know what else is coming? I want to get your thoughts on this. Verified deals. So, there's a lot of JVers that like don't even have it under contract. They download someone's photos from Facebook and like, oh, let me see it. Like, you shouldn't do that.
Especially in Atlanta for some reason.
Yeah, Atlanta is the worst for this. You'll be able to upload your contracts, and then when you upload your contract, we're feeding it into AI. The AI reads the contract, makes sure it's actually a legit contract. Boom, you got a blue check mark on your deal. Not only that, we got two-way in-app messaging launching on Thursday, because texting buyers is expensive. You get 10 times the response rate, 10 times the leads, but it's expensive.
Sure. And
then on email, you got like, did they actually open the email? You're lucky if you get like a 2 to 4% click-through rate. So I'm like, dude, we're a DM-based society. Like, I don't even give out my phone number anymore. I never answer the phone. I'm just like, DM me, text me, right? Like, that's how we operate these days. So where we're going to be going with that is like, if it's a really good deal, you'll be able to like boost it, to DM it to the top buyers that are buying similar deals and looking at similar deals to that.
So it's like a DM through the platform.
Yeah, and then you can respond and just be like messaging back and forth.
I love
have to worry about paying for tax.
Dude, I never thought you like, I used to teach in the beginning, I was like, you can't sell a property over a text message, but
you can.
You absolutely can.
Absolutely
I've done it plenty. Like
It's much easier for you to sell it. And by the way, I disagree with your mentality thinking dispo first. I just did.
Yeah, give us your take.
My take is money's made always on the acquisition. You make your money on the buy side. You're in control of the deal. You bring huge value to the marketplace by having the contract. How many people want to? If you're just dispoing or you're daisy chaining someone's deal, I think it's so easy now with your technology, for example, accolades to you. You're in control of everything. You write your own ticket. You're running shop. If you can figure out how to buy a deal at a good price, you can make a name for yourself. I think you should focus on acquisitions. The dispositions will always happen. If you're buying these things right and you understand that, people will flock to you. It's so easy to go to any AZ RIA, go online, Facebook Marketplace to dispo. That's pretty easy. I mean, of course, you got to learn all the new, and nothing's easy. But at the end of the day, when you have your own deal and you can lock it up, you're writing your own ticket. So now I understand there's costs to that and all that stuff, but you could also do it inexpensively.
You got to have capital.
You got to have capital. You got to have some stay power.
A lot of time where you're just like
hustling.
Okay with just, I'm going to cold call for 12 hours a day.
I say get in the field or drive for dollars or
drive for dollars.
There's all those different things. Yeah. I'm just saying, I couldn't sit here and I'm thinking about it. You're writing your own ticket. From that, you will develop and cultivate great relationships with JV partners or anyone, or you just tell someone that's got a good dispo department, I will give you $5,000, whatever the number is, if you sell this, or here's the number I need, make whatever you want.
Yeah, I would say if we look at the free marketing strategies you just talked about, right? Driving for dollars, cold calling a list, for sale by owner, a bandit sign or something.
A lot of people are getting I know people that spend $0. They're just calling agents for distress.
Calling agents, right? Okay, let's take all of that and let's talk about just building a buyer's list and JV in a deal. Like, those are two ways to get a deal with little to no money, right? I would say just for argument's sake, you're gonna get a deal and sell it and make money faster doing dispo than you are trying to learn the acquisitions process. How many dials are you going to have to make? How many doors are you going to have to knock?
Just registering your phone numbers to make sure that they don't go to spam takes 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong.
Yeah. Sure, no, I'm just playing
there's
both
more
sides.
steps.
I'm sitting here digesting.
But
we always like to be in control, right?
Yeah.
You're not in control. You're selling someone else's deal.
There's a give and take on both sides.
You're going to make more money on the deal if you control the whole thing for sure. Then you're getting your 25K rep. Whereas if you JV someone else's deal, like I was just on a call with a young guy, he had just JV'd someone else's deal. His first deal he ever did, he made $1,900 on it. Mm-hmm. But like that was life-changing for him. Yeah. You know, he works installing windows, making $15 an hour, $1,700 for him. It's like, he's like, now I have my startup budget to actually like get going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my average, like with the JV company I have, like, I think our average assignment with the 50-50 split we do is under 10 grand.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, it's not huge.
They're
like
not
you said,
big reps.
you control, like you do make the money on the buy. Like I get it.
There's so many more variables.
And you
right?
make
like
even more if you
how much
flip
money
it.
is that person starting out with? Do you have security? Are you living with your parents? What's your overhead? What is your burn rate? Are you frugal? Are you reinvesting everything?
The answer is
it
depends.
It depends on situation. Being consultative to understand that. But I'd always focus on if you can focus and acquire deals, you've got staying power in this industry, no matter what.
100%.
Yeah, and I don't think people just getting started necessarily should be paying for marketing the first 30 days. It's like, get the marbles out of your mouth, get some free leads, cold call a list, door knock, drive for dollars, call for sale by owner, call agents.
Show up on construction sites. I love your background to understand and cultivate these deals. Understand what is it. How can you sell something if you don't even understand the process? Why you're really good at what you do is you've been on all facets of it. You get it, and you're breaking it all down for somebody to make it streamlined.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me, and like this comes down to like how you teach and manage and onboard your team too, where it's like you could be we've been doing this for a long time. We've seen every deal, we've all this stuff, right? We understand construction. When you bring somebody on that has never wholesaled, probably never even bought a house, like explaining to them what is a slab, what is a crawl space, what is a basement, like just the basics of it. Like I made that mistake at my last business when I started hiring people and building a team. Like I had to switch my mentality of managing people. It's like, oh, like this is second nature to me and not to them. I got to start here. You know what I mean? And it's with,
dumb it down.
With
what is
coaching
an assignment?
or anything.
What do you mean earnest money title? I don't know what this means.
What's ARV? Like it has to be so granular with people just getting started. But yeah, to your point, it's like we didn't start. We were sending our deals to a JV partner in the beginning. Like we were doing what you said. Like we were just focused on acquisition.
Someone else was selling them all on Investorlift.
Yeah.
Like, wait,
exactly.
How are you selling these all?
Exactly. And then it was like, now we'll build out the dispo team.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for people like zero money, like living at their mom's house, making, $12 an hour, I think your time would be better spent and more efficient building that buyer's list, understand what your buyers want, and bringing them a deal to make a cut off of it, is my opinion.
Yeah. If you know sales, if you got sales experience and you have some capital, then it might be the opposite. Then you just start probably do acquisitions first because you're going to make way more money per deal. As long as you have the capital to survive, because 99% of people that get in this industry, they run out of money before they get their first check.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
What do you, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How do you, I get this question all the time, which is why I'm going to ask you. People are hesitant, maybe that's not the right word, but people are worried about regulations in wholesaling in certain markets and stuff like that.
Great question.
Like, what do you think in the next 5 years? Where do you see regulations in wholesaling or with,
Yeah, I mean, we went really in depth with this with Jerry Norton. He's probably the guy that
I talked to him about this all the time.
Jerry and I, we were living in Puerto Rico for a year, right same island. So we talked about it, and we used to be super against it. And then I got to talk to him more. I'm like, Jerry, you know what? I think it actually might be good. It might actually be good because there's too many yahoos in the industry right now. It needs to be professionalized. There's a reason why there's no publicly traded house buying company. It's because it's the goddamn Wild West right now. Okay. And you won't have, there's no barriers to entry. We don't have barriers to entry. You know, like, it's just like anyone with a phone can wholesale. Like, it's too fragmented. If you put in a little bit of regulation, all you're doing is you're increasing the barrier to entry. The deals are always still going to happen, right? There's always going to be a market price for an asset, right? If there's more regulation, what will happen is that will add some additional costs. Like, let's just say hypothetically, I can't do an assignment of contract in whatever state, but I can double close. Okay. But I don't have the capital to buy everything. So then I'm going to go to a transactional lender. We're actually built this right into Investorlift now. By the way, you guys, if you need transactional lending, we have it built into Investorlift, and we'll transactionally fund it for 1%. So it's going to add another 1% in financing costs, which that just gets passed on to the seller. So actually the seller is going to lose out a little bit, right? But like on the flip side of things, the cost of that, so it might be a 1% cost, but the benefit for that is going to be clearing out a lot of the yahoos. One of the things that we're also bringing to Investorlift before the end of the year is two-way reviews. Two-way reviews, buyers can review wholesalers can review buyers, because ultimately this is a trust economy. Real estate is all, you're transacting. Can I trust this guy? Is this guy a real buyer? Is this guy a real wholesaler? We're going to also introduce, that's going to be the first step towards profiles. Every wholesaler, every buyer is going to have a profile like LinkedIn that will showcase, oh, here's all the deals I flipped. Here's all the deals I bought and hold. Hey, look, I'm 5-star rated on Investorlift. And then where I want to go with it, Jerry and I, we work on the National Association of Real Estate Wholesalers. I think we should change that to the National Association of Real Estate Investors. We should create our own code of ethics, standardized contracts, a training program. You go through the training, you do a quick test. We're talking like 1 hour. 1 hour, go through the training. Hey, we're not going to pull out of contracts the night before when Granny's got her whole house packed up and then try to price reduce the night before. Like that we're not going to do $1 EMDs. All this sleazy shit.
Filing memos that you couldn't move a deal
memos and then leaving them, memo farming, like all this sleazy stuff. I agree with this code of ethics to abide by these standards. Then we're going to give you an ID, a license, like a driver's license, but issued by, Jerry's already set it up. It's a non-for-profit trade organization.
I've talked to him in depth.
You get your membership. You got your membership ID. There's a QR code on the back. Anyone can scan that QR code. It brings up your Investorlift profile. It shows, yes, licensed real estate investor. Here's my rating. Here's my public reviews. Here's all the deals I've done. For the best operators, they're going to be able to do way more business. And then all of the yahoos, let's knock them all out. All those guys, we've already been doing this. The first thing we introduced was the ability to blacklist buyers. I think there's like 230,000 buyers that have been completely banned from Investorlift systems. Wow. We're just cleaning them out. But that is not visible for people outside of Investorlift.
Right.
I want to make that visible. So I'm very libertarian. So I'm very for let the market do what the market is going to do. But I think that there needs to be some
association.
I don't want the government to do it. If we don't do it, the government's going to do it. So I'd rather we do it. We clean up our own industry. We had more transparency, more trust, a code of ethics, and we clean out the bad actors than have the government do it.
I would love an association that, you're always stronger as a group than individually. Like right now, there's other associations that are picking us off. Yeah. And it's like, we have no power.
Yeah. And here's what should happen. At the end of each year, we should all get together. We rent a conference hall in Vegas somewhere. It's not a for-profit event. We're not having guys up there on the stage flocking their products. We are just having the best guys in the industry that we can look at the reviews, highest rated people, the people that did the most transactions, the people with the biggest portfolios, like driven by the numbers, we choose who talks. They give their presentations, and then we do an awards each year. We have the National Association of Real Estate Investors Awards Gala and we recognize the innovators, the greatest in our industry, and we celebrate those people because we are rebuilding America's neighborhoods every single day. Every house that we bring back to life, we're bringing that neighborhood back to life. Without us, America's neighborhoods fall apart.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor. Is this true? You know, did Trump call you to invite you to his cabinet for the housing association? Or you been nominated?
Trump, if you're watching this, I will leave the house. No, I got too much. I got too much on my plate already.
Funny. I got a question for you, young man.
Yes, sir.
So let's say you have you decide to have kids, you know, hypothetically. You got your son. You've had your great life. You're 98 years old. You're relaxed on your bed. You know, you got a few hours to live, and says, Dad, you know, got a couple hours left. You've been an amazing dad. Give me some other, you know, a minute or two of life advice that you would convey to your son, you know, for words of wisdom from your experience thus far.
I'll give two. I live by kind of a standard of staying in touch with people that you care about or care about you. And it's helped me build really good relationships in business, with friends, family, of when somebody pops in my head, I take that as like a sign from the universe or something. And I don't care if I haven't seen or talked to this person in, 2 years. Like in that moment, I'll call them, try and text them, get a hold of them. Like always, like when somebody is popping in your head, to get a hold of them. Like there's a reason for that. Don't let that moment go by, because you never know when it's going to come back, and you never know if that person needed you to reach out to them. It only helps. It's only helped me in life, like stay in touch with people that are close to me, or were close to me at one point in my life, and maybe our lives went differently, but it's like, if you're thinking about them, just get in touch with them.
Look what Eric did to you.
Look, just like that.
Beach, here I am.
Just like that. A great example. And dude, like when you said, what does 10 years look like from now earlier? It's like, I literally live like for today. And that has served me so well, where I'm not distracted. I don't become overwhelmed with, what's going to happen next week or a month from now or this. Like I have goals, but those goals aren't going to get met by thinking about them 60 days, in 60 days in advance. It's like, what can you do today to then hit that goal? And don't be so distracted with, what is going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, or where you want to be, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or I have a flight on Friday, making sure like I know exactly what times it is. If I'm flying tomorrow, I don't know when my flight time is until tonight when I go to bed. I'll check. Like I don't worry about anything tomorrow. I just literally live exactly in the moment I'm in, and that has served me so well throughout my life. Those two things, I would say, are probably the top most important for me.
Amazing. We've never heard that, but I mean, I asked similar questions all the time, nothing that specific, but great advice. I love that. It's really
I think one of the problems when people live too far in the future, they let go of their happiness today. They're like, I will be happy when, and they rob themselves from just enjoying where they're at today.
Yeah. And we live in a world where we're just so obsessed, with our phones and social media and what everybody else is doing. It's like, who gives a shit?
No, at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit.
Nobody gives a shit.
Right.
I was just in Mexico for 3 or 4 days, down in Baja, and I'm not running around looking for Wi-Fi to check my emails and shit. Like, I'm there with friends, and I'm just living in the moment and having fun. It's like I can detach from business and other things, like when I'm not in that situation. Like when I'm here and I'm working every day, that's what I'm focused on. I'm living in that moment. But like, it's okay to, go away for a minute and just live in that moment. The world's not going to burn down around you. It's all going to be there. Like, I'm 41 years old, so I remember a time when we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have social media, and the world didn't burn down because somebody couldn't get a hold of you in an instant.
It was the good old days.
It was. It's like, dude, that's important. And yeah, you gotta, like Robert said, you steal rob yourself of a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Because most people these days don't even realize they're living in a great time, or they're living in, like, I'm not a religious person. And when I hear people talk about heaven and stuff like that, like, I'm always like, man, how could it get better than this?
Yeah.
Like, this is heaven.
That's a great position to be in.
Like when you're, on a beautiful hike or doing somebody you love, and it's like, man, I can't imagine it's better than this. Like, let me just take this in. And you can't do that being distracted with thoughts of, the future. The future hasn't happened. It's not guaranteed. Why waste your time with it? And the beautiful thing about the past is you can't change it. So why would you ever dwell on it? Like, it's not going to help. The only decision we have is to live right now.
Right.
So that's my philosophy.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Okay, I got to ask you before we wrap things up here. You are now, you sold the company with Eric. You're spinning up another shop that's doing dispo as a service for other real estate wholesalers. If people are watching this show today, they got a deal, they need help moving it. How can they send their deal to you?
Yeah, most of the deals come through my social media. So you could DM me that you have a deal, and I'll send you the link.
At Tony Mont.
At the Tony Mont.
The Tony Mont.
The Tony Mont. DM me a deal, or it's go.thetonymont.com/JV. It's just a form you fill out.
Go.thetonymont.com/JV.
But if you DM me, I'll send you the link. And then it's just a simple, like, I've tried to make the process really easy to where you can fill out a form with all the information I need about the deal, and then you submit it. It comes over to my team. They audit it, make sure the contracts are good, make sure the photos are good, the numbers make sense, rerun our comps, and then send an agreement over saying, all right, we're going to send it out at this price. It'll sell at this price, whether that's higher, lower, or the same as what the wholesaler thought. And then we just sign off on an agreement together, and we throw it on Investorlift and start ripping.
Awesome. Well, Tony, this has been incredible having you on here.
Yeah.
So guys, go to dispoday.com. Join us Wednesday, 2 p.m. Phoenix time, if you want to see Tony selling some deals live.
I'd love to see Tony sell.
It'd be so much
fun.
Absolutely.
I love it.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. If you found some value, make sure to give us a like, subscribe, and drop us a comment. Tony, if people have questions, can you follow up with some of the comments?
100%.
All right. So
absolutely.
if you got questions for Tony, drop them in the comments below, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place.